a session around, I mentioned this earlier, around our strategy that we've been working on this year. I'm going to talk through some of what we've done and how we've done it, and then also there'll be some polls where we're really interested in your views on kind of where we've got to, the kind of general direction, that sort of thing. So we're really important to get your views and thoughts on kind of where we've got to before we develop furthermore. Now, in some ways, developing a new strategy is really challenging. You need to think about where we are, what we're doing as an organization, the kind of environment, what the government's doing, the state of the UK. All these things have an impact on an organization like ours. Also, what funds, I mean, the more funds we get, the more we can do, the more ambitious we can be. How ambitious do we want to be with knowing that will take funds, or how much realistic do we want to be? And also things like our aims, what we're aiming to do as a charity. Do we want to be ambitious or more steady? Do we want to develop new things, or carry on as we are? And also involves a certain amount of prediction of what we think might happen and what we can do as part of that. Um, so in some ways, developing strategy can be really good. Thanks, Cheryl, for the next slide. But in some ways also it can be quite simple. In lots of ways, it's down to three elements, which I've put up on this slide: where we are now and what we've learnt, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. Once we've developed the first two, then we can work on the third, which is the kind of delivery, how we're going to deliver on that. And again, that's something that affects all of us. Now, if I can go on to the next slide, Cheryl. What we did in terms of our process for this, we were really keen to involve as many of you as our volunteers, supporters, coordinators, people, and also speak to people who aren't involved in Neighbourhood Watch, because it's one thing that we are aware of all the time is the desire to get new members, to get younger members involved in Neighbourhood Watch. We're aware of while the demographic is improved massively, we've still got a ways to go. And we certainly hear from lots of associations wanting to get younger people involved, in that the work often can get focused on a few people that have been potentially volunteers for 30 years that kind of, probably deserve a bit of a break. So what we did in terms of this process, we worked and employed a charity called Caplaw Horizons. Now, they're a charity that specialise in helping other charities develop and deliver strategies and kind of change in terms of what they're doing. Now, they do a lot of international work. They're quite picky on who they work with, but they were really interested to work with Neighbourhood Watch, given our size and scope, and that it's very much volunteer-led. They do a lot of work with international charities, as I mentioned, but they were really keen to work with us. So they've been helping us through this process, because obviously an external view is often quite helpful. Otherwise, we do things in the Neighbourhood Watch way rather than being a bit challenged on that. So first of all, what we did was had a session with the staff team, and we agreed as part of this process if there are things that were up for discussion and if there are things that weren't up for discussion. And we didn't want to spend lots of time wordsmithing things that we'd already spent time on. So we agreed that our vision, the organizational vision and mission, would stay the same, in terms of what we want to do. That would be unchanged, and I'll come on to those. But we didn't want to spend time wordsmithing that for something that is likely to be very similar, whatever, even if we change the word slightly. The next bit, we did a lot of desk research. So we've looked at the previous strategy. We've done some previous market research. We looked at the surveys that we've done each year to all the members to get views from that, our impact reports, other reports that we've done, and kind of where Neighbourhood Watch is. We also spoke to a few other organisations and members around where they thought the organisation was. And then, as in time-honoured fashion, we developed a small steering group. So there were some trustees, association leads, coordinators, and some of the staff team on that. Just a small mixed group that would work on that. And then with the kind of main work started. So we had 4 focus groups. So with volunteers, the first one was with volunteers, coordinators, and association leads, to get your views, your thoughts on what we should do, what we should do more of, what we should do less of, what was a focus and what was a priority. We also had a significant session with partners. So the organisations like Crime Stoppers, Victim Support, Communities Inc., the Ben Kinsella Trust, Susie Lamplugh Trust, Neighbourhood Watch Scotland, and some education and younger people organisations that it'd be important that we kind of whether it's young people as in under 24s, or whether we think of young people as kind of, 25 up to 40, but younger people, and how to work with those. We also had a session with those young people to get their views and thoughts. We know that we know what the demographic is in Neighbourhood Watch, so it's obviously important to ask younger people what would make you join, what would you be interested in, what would be attractive to you and make you be part of Neighbourhood Watch if you're not already. And then we also had a session with the police and PCCs and the Home Office. Obviously, they're a key and crucial stakeholder of Neighbourhood Watch, and we wanted their views on what they see as the future, what they think Neighbourhood Watch could do, and what we should do more of, less of. And then we started a set of interviews. So these are fairly straightforward, semi-structured interviews. That was particularly with the Home Office. And we also spoke to MPs, both the Policing Minister and the Shadow Minister, to get their kind of views. The Royal Volunteer Service, which used to be the WRVS, as they do a lot of research into the state of volunteering. And we know, I'm sure most of you have heard, that volunteering, the nature of volunteering is changing in the UK. One, there are less people involved in volunteering than used to be, and also that those volunteers tend to want to be involved in more shorter term activities rather than long term volunteering. So how we as an organisation might harness that. Also, organisations like the National Council for Voluntary Organisations, to get their views. So that's the start of that kind of work. We also did a survey of all of you, members and supporters. We got nearly 12,000 responses, and some of the feedback we got was really interesting. Certainly when we asked about why people joined Neighbourhood Watch, just over half the people that joined Neighbourhood Watch, their primary reason, not their only reason, their primary reason was to be involved in the community, to improve it, and to know what's going on in their community. And then just slightly less than half, the other reason, or the next most important reason, was to reduce crime or prevent being a victim. So those, not surprisingly, were the two key areas. But as I say, both just around 50% of that being the primary reason why people joined. About a third of people were active in a Neighbourhood Watch activity in the last year. So there were actual activities. So it wasn't a kind of passive organisation where they were, but actual had activities for people to get involved in. And the interesting, when we asked what the number one priority for Neighbourhood Watch should be into the future, the highest response was around helping people connect with their neighbours. That was the highest response, was that the number one response. And a very close second was around the absence of criminal activity. And the other key parts were being involved in a community group and an absence of discrimination or prejudice and exclusion in where they lived in their community. We also found that 2/3 of people were nearly twice as likely to take part in initiatives and activities that help people connect with their neighbours. So 2/3 of the survey would say that's something that they would take part in. And again, 2/3 thought it was really important to resolve isolation and loneliness. But 3/4 of people believe that community-led action can reduce crime and antisocial behaviour in their community. So you can see these two kind of parallel strands, or we could see these two kind of parallel strands emerging. And also, an increase previously, about 2/3 of people felt that Neighbourhood Watch had a positive reputation locally within their community. So we know that we've got a strong reputational base, and that's something really useful to build on. And just in a tiny bit more detail, there was it was about 90% of people thought we should focus moving forward on specific crimes like fraud, antisocial behaviour and burglary. We should strengthen police and local partnerships, not just the police, but local partnerships in the police, and increase the public awareness of Neighbourhood Watch. And then about 80% of people wanted to involve there to be a higher involvement of younger people. And again, that's not children, that's younger people. So kind of, I guess, 18 to kind of 40. About 40% of people felt that we should definitely focus on loneliness and isolation, and then 3 times more than not about increasing digital tools and holding community events. So just wanted to use those in terms of to give you some feedback on that, on the survey that we got feedback from yourselves. And then finally, we've taken part in 2 quite lengthy workshops with quite large numbers of people taking place. um, and working up what that might look like in terms of a new strategy for the next 5 years. So just wanted to share the next slide now with the title of the strategy and I mentioned the vision and mission being unchanged. So certainly, when we did talk a bit about whether it should be towards a Britain, towards a land. Certainly, words like country and land and Britain now have, a kind of political footballs that get pushed, kicked back and forth. So we're kind of wary of what they mean very different things to different people. But towards a future where neighbours look out for each other, and that's kind of both obviously for crime and loneliness, well-being, and community cohesiveness. One of the things that almost all the volunteers and coordinators involved were keen to do was make sure that the language was much more simple and we weren't using kind of um, business speak or strategy speak. And they're also very keen that our values were more straightforward and more simple, and hence looking to change our values as part of this strategy to that the Neighbourhood Watch values are that we are friendly, that we're trusted, and that we're active. And I think active was one of the key bits that came out as part of the workshops. So you can see we're just trying to sort of simplify the language and not change things that don't need changing. So if we can go on to the next slide, Cheryl. Now, I'm not going to read this out because you're all perfectly capable of reading it. So one of the things we were keen to do in our strategy was kind of describe what we see as our envisioned future. So I'll just leave you a second to read this rather than me reading it through. So one of the things we know from feedback from yourselves and association leads and others is kind of how to describe what we do and what we want. And that's this short paragraph is to kind of articulate in a very simple way what we do and what we want, where we want to get to, where we think we should be living, and what we want to happen. So you've had a chance to read that through. So I think that's really helpful. What I wanted to do now was just have a quick poll in terms of your thoughts on that, in whether that seems to get is the right direction. So what's come up in front of you now will be a poll. And if everybody could answer that, we can display the results. But whether this envisaged future seem like the right future that we're aiming for. So if people are able to say whether they think yes, it's great, yes, it's good, seems about right, it's not right, or it's awful, that would be really helpful. So if you can click on those and submit them, we can share those results, I think. So it's just to get your kind of thoughts on that envisioned future. So if people can talk to that would be great. So I don't know if you're able to share the results for that, Cheryl, on the screen. Okay, so that's great. So yeah, I mean, inevitably, we've got the vast majority of people see that yeah, a good number. It's great, it's good, or seems about right. I mean, we're not asking people to wordsmith it because I know we all have slightly different views, but it sounds like we're right. I just seen something in the comment about inclusive, so that's something perhaps we can go back and have some thought on. But thank you very much for that feedback. I'm just going to move now to what we've developed our 3 goals. So if we can go to the next slide, Cheryl, that would be great. So these are the goals that again, and we were very keen that the language is kept simple in this and not complicated. So our first goal would be to quite simply bring neighbours together. So as an organisation, we will inspire more people to feel safer, to build safer, friendly communities that people feel a part of. And our second one about show our impact. We know it's sometimes really hard to show how successful you've been to prevent something, because by the very nature of that is that it's it is it's hard to show that, evidencing something that hasn't happened. But we'll demonstrate the real difference Neighbourhood Watch makes through powerful stories and evidence. And the third goal was around that we'll be trusted and innovative. So we'll be recognised as a reliable and forward-thinking organisation, tackling today's crimes with fresh ideas to build safer, better neighbourhoods. So those were the three goals that we want to do. I'll go into each into a little bit more detail and then get your thoughts on those. So if we can go to the next slide, Cheryl. So the first goal, as I mentioned, is to inspire more people to build safer, friendly communities that people feel part of. And some of the key parts of that are around give local leaders, which is coordinators and associations, the skills and tools they need to make a difference. Welcome new members and grow our reach by working with more partners locally and nationally, and make Neighbourhood Watch known as a modern active movement. So what some of those things might look like? I mean, some of the things that we might look to introduce is around micro volunteering, to make it easy for people to volunteer on a short-term basis. That we'd work with coordinators to develop a budgie scheme for local coordinators, so people feel able, that link up with people either in their area or across a different area with a different plan. And also extend beyond just, we want to extend and develop our police focus and links, but also beyond just it being purely police. So local councils, local authorities, those kind of things will be part of that. So I guess we just want to have another poll now to your thoughts on goal one and whether you think it's the right kind of thing, great, good, about right, or not right or awful. So again, if people can just click what they see as that whether goal one is the right priority and submit them, that would be great. So just give people a couple of minutes to do that. Excuse me, I just got a frog in my throat. Mm. So if people can do that, that's great. And then Cheryl, if we've got some of the results coming through, if we can share those, please, that'd be great. Okay, so again, we've got it's good. I think that we may be able to make it a bit better, but it seems like it's about right or good or great. So that's great. Thank you very much for your feedback on that. That's fantastic. If we move to the next slide now, Cheryl, on goal two. Poor old Cheryl has got the difficult job of doing my slides and doing the polls, so is neck deep in the tech at the moment. So our second goal will be that we'll clearly demonstrate the real difference Neighbourhood Watch makes through powerful stories of evidence. And this will be both in terms of, as you said, the priorities to collect and share amazing stories and videos that will show our work in action. I think we know being really clear that how many people receive information, and particularly that age group that I mentioned, some of that will need to be in videos and stories as we move forward, rather than it just being about data. Yeah, and I'm seeing some stuff coming through on the chat around more training needed for coordinators. We agree, and that would be part of the previous goal, giving leaders the skills that they need. That's certainly something that we want to focus on. So collecting and sharing stories, gather direct feedback from people to show how we've helped them. So these are the beneficiaries of Neighbourhood Watch. And then thirdly, get clear evidence of our positive impact from partners like the police. I mean, a small example of that was making sure that we're engaging more directly with police officers like Tom, who spoke earlier, who clearly sees the benefit of what we do, and making sure that we're using other people to talk positively about what we do. And I think that's a key part of demonstrating our difference and our impact. So again, we're just going to have a quick poll now in terms of your thoughts on this, about making sure that we can demonstrate and enable you to demonstrate why Neighbourhood Watch is powerful and beneficial. So that's something that you can use to attract more members and train people. So if everyone can fill in this poll again, that would be great. So if we can share the results of that, Cheryl, if you're able to, that would be great. So yeah, again, I think that's That's right. In terms of going with kind of, I think the polls are coming back in a similar format. So most in terms of good, a few great, and a lot great, and a lot good, and lots in terms of good. So thank you for that. So if we can move on to the next slide, Shell, in terms of goal 3. Yeah, I think there's some really useful things coming through in the comments in terms of simplifying language and about it being for everybody. I think that's really helpful. So the third goal would that we will be trusted and innovative. We know already from feedback that we get in terms of that as an organisation we are trusted, but also that we want to be seen as being innovative. So we'd be recognised as a reliable and forward-thinking organisation, tackling today's crimes with fresh ideas to build safer, better neighbourhoods. I mean, one of the things that's come through in terms of the chat is around cybercrime and drug use, and those are kind of slightly more modern crimes than when Neighbourhood Watch started just over 40 years ago. So I think that's, that those are the sort of things that we mean by this. So again, the priority is to provide clear and easy ways to measure and show our impact, celebrate and share our successes, championing community achievements, and expand our focus to tackle model crimes like online threats and antisocial behaviour. So hopefully that kind of addresses what some of the people have been coming through in terms of the chat. So yeah, that we will be trusted and innovative. So if we can put the poll up in the what's now becoming the time-honoured fashion of having a bit of a poll of whether that seems like a good goal, the third goal that we've got. So if you can put that up, Cheryl, that would be great. So again, if people can answer that poll, that would be brilliant. That'd be great. So yeah, we've got some useful comments coming through that we will obviously go through all the comments and questions. So I think that's right. And so yeah, there's some people seeing Neighbourhood Watch as a bit outdated. And I think that's part of what we want to alter, and with accurate and widely available information around that. Yeah, and yeah, there's the use of the metrics. Some of the metrics about that is quite hard. Thank you. That's great in terms of the third priorities. Again, kind of replicate. So about a quarter of people think it's great, and 43% think it's good, and a third of people think it seems about right. So that's really helpful. And I think we can build on certainly things like trusted. That is something that we can build on. So that's been really helpful. Thank you. So I guess if we can move on to the next slide, Cheryl. So the next slide is around this is how we describe ourselves. And I think one of the issues we've had over a long period of time, it's quite hard. Neighbourhood Watch does carry a very clear message in terms of kind of historically how it might look about kind of watching out. But obviously Neighbourhood Watch has always been far more than that. So we've been working on this as a description of what we do, the kind of 3 areas that we work on, that we, all of us, you and we all work on in terms of our local neighbourhood watchers. So there's Neighbourhood Watch, where we provide information and resources that help all people, whoever you are, avoid becoming victims of crime, sharing intelligence on actual and potential criminal activity and antisocial behaviour. That's the Neighbourhood Watch bit. But we also do the Neighbourhood Connect bit. We deliver initiatives that help people in all ages and backgrounds connect with their neighbours, reducing loneliness and isolation while fostering powerful mutual support. And also, we already do this in many, many areas, the Neighbourhood Act element of it. So we empower people to get involved in practical activities that directly improve their local area, making a tangible difference to where they live. And we'll hear about that later on in the next section of the conference, where people are being very active in their communities, but also connecting people. We know that kind of it didn't come to a fore during COVID, but became very much more apparent during COVID in terms of the connect element of Neighbourhood Watch. And none of these are new things, obviously, but they're ways that we describe ourselves, what makes us distinctive. And the Neighbourhood Watch does all those things. And obviously different um, people, non-members, different people are attracted to different parts or aspects of that, whether it's the Neighbourhood Watch, the Neighbourhood Connect, or the Neighbourhood Act. In some areas we do all of them, in some just 1 or 2 of them. But as I say, how we describe ourselves is kind of you describe ourselves by what we do, and these are the things that we do. And I think often it's tricky to provide a kind of a short, snappy way of describing what Neighbourhood Watch does. And I think this is hard. This is an attempt to kind of do that and what makes us distinctive. So we're just going to run another poll now in terms of your thoughts in terms of the just how we describe ourselves as Neighbourhood Watch, Neighbourhood Connect, Neighbourhood Act. So this is not changing our name or anything else, but just being really clear about the elements that we do. So again, if people can fill in the poll, that would be really helpful to make sure to see what sort of track we're on. So if people can answer that and submit it, that would be great. This has been really getting your feedback is hugely helpful to make sure we're broadly on the right track as part of that. So if we can share that, Cheryl, that would be great. So again, we've got yeah, it seems about right. It's good, and a few less in terms of it's great. So that's fine. So thank you, Cheryl, for sharing that, and thank you all for your time and effort to kind of give us some feedback. It seems like we are in the right. We haven't got everything right by any means, but it sounds like we are in the right direction in terms of the strategy, which is hugely helpful. So I'm just going to go on to the next slide and just quickly go through next steps before we stop for another comfort break. So the next steps we're gonna collate our feedback that we've got from you today and that we've got from others. If people want to let us know other things, please just email in to myself or a member of the team. That'd be perfect. We'll amend and improve that strategy work and then share that with the steering group and develop a strategy on a page, which is one of the things we're really keen to do. That what we want is that the strategy isn't a multi-page document that nobody reads, but is something that is really pleased to people can really read it, whether you're a coordinator or an association lead or a member of the staff team or trustee, whoever, or a member of another organisation, that you can quickly go, oh, that's what Neighbourhood Watch is. That's what it's trying to do, and that's what it's about, which I think is really important. We want it to be as usable as possible. And then the key part of that is then develop an implementation or delivery plan with timescales and KPIs, which we'll share. We'll share that with the board, and then we'll share with association leads the final documents at the AGM in December. And then following any feedback from that, the final amends. And then very early next year, we will publish and get going. So I don't know if Ian, you've got your hand up. If someone can unmute Ian, if there's something that you wanted to say, Ian, someone will need to unmute me.
Yeah. Thank you. Oops, everything's disappeared. Yeah. Well, thanks for that, John. I think it was a really good summary, and it's good to get the feedback from colleagues on the call. As you say, it seems like we're going in the right direction. I just noticed that quite a few comments in the chat about the importance of us being politically unbiased, and of course, that's absolutely right. We are a charity. We are for everyone. We are not aligned with any particular political movement. And I think some of this was raised in connection with language such as inclusive, which sadly does have some political connotations. So I think what we've got to recognise is that it's not. The challenge is not us being political. We can manage that very well. We know what the restraints are on us as a charity. It's when some of the things that are part of our values, and that I think are the values of almost everyone that's part of this movement, become contentious. And in that case, I do think it's right that we stick up for those values. It's not to get involved in discussions or attacking people who might be challenging them. It's a free country and they're perfectly right to do so. But I don't think we should shy away from expressing those values in the right sort of way, because they are important to our work of bringing people together. So, inclusive is one of those. It's very sad that it's become contentious, but that doesn't mean that we are being political. It does mean we have to make sure that we're debating these issues respectfully. But I think it's something for us all to think about. It affects lots of charities these days, and I think the Charity Commission do recognise that, and their rules are about making sure that charities are not overly partisan politically, but they do support charities that stand up for values that might be challenged by others. So I think we've got to be brave and consistent with our values to do that.